Thanks for staying with us. Now, after months of demonstrations and agitations to protest the delay in the payment of the allowances, recruits under the government's Youth in Afforestation program will be paid 1 month allowance. This is despite demands by the workers that many of them have not been paid for almost 6 months. Officials of the Forestry Commission were forced to make an announcement of the payment after scores of angry recruits gathered at the premises of the Commission earlier today to demand their arrears. They say they will continue to agitate every day at the Commission until their arrears are paid. There's more in this report.
I was employed June, and I didn't get my pay. Okay. I had July up to date, nothing. Always they come here, they tell us, oh, we should go, they will pay.
Okay.
They said they will pay. That is what they have been telling us.
Aziz is a degree holder. He was recruited into the Youth in Afforestation program 7 months ago. Out of the 7, he has been paid only 1 month allowance. The rest, he says, he's been begging government to pay him so he can feed his family.
What month? Who said that? They have paid what? They have not paid anything. They are lying. We've been here. What did they saw us coming? They closed the gate. We stood there peacefully until the soldier gave a warning. He was shooting at us. He spoke a regular iPhone.
Did you provoke them? Did you provoke them?
Anything.
He's not alone. Jemima is also demanding her allowances. She says, like many of her colleagues, she has had to borrow money for the upkeep of her family. She says she cannot continue to live in that manner and is demanding immediate payment of her arrears.
I am here for my money. We are tired of the empty promises.
Every month, every week, Friday, Saturday,
we have a lot of bills to settle. They've always postponed the payments. We are hungry and tired. We were expecting them to pay us our arrears, but Sir John decided to pay a month's salary.
The recruits, numbering almost 100, rejected fresh assurances by Chief Executive of the Commission, Kwadwo Owusu-Afriyie, when he came to address them earlier. And it is not difficult to understand why. Michael Okoye is one of the angry recruits, skeptical about the fresh assurances.
They'll give us 1 month. And it's all line. I'm repeating, it's a bit of mediocrity. It's a lie, it's a political talk. We know Sir John. We've been here several times. And the same thing.
So what's your next line of action now?
Tomorrow we will be here, tomorrow.
Well, although the recruits are not convinced with the fresh assurance by officials of the Forestry Commission that they will pay before Christmas, the Commission insists the payments are being worked on. Well, Joyce Ofori-Kwafo is Corporate Affairs and Media Relations Manager of the Commission. I spoke to her a while ago. She tells me why the allowances are consistently delayed.
Monies will have to come from the Ministry of Finance to the Forestry Commission, and then it goes through the process before it hits their accounts. So as and when money comes in from the Ministry of Finance, we pay them. Now, when we started the program, the funds were not coming in as expected. So Forestry Commission had to go look for loans. That was what we used to pay them for the first 4 months up to July. And then after that, getting the funds was becoming difficult. So we pushed and pushed and pushed. And then as I speak with you, everything has gone on, the paperwork, all the processes have gone on for their allowances to be paid for the month of August, whilst we prepare for the rest of the months to be paid. Now, if you look at these documents in front of me here, now you see all these letters that have been written, memos here and there, back and forth. And the last one is this one, which is a payment check deposit form, which has been paid to Ghana Commercial Bank. That was yesterday. If you look at the date on it, it's 17th. It was just yesterday that this amount was paid into Ghana Commercial Bank's account for them to also pay the beneficiaries. So as we speak now, they are working on it, and then very soon it will hit their accounts. We have given them assurances over and over again that we are going to get them their allowances before Christmas. In fact, it is not the wish of Forestry Commission that such a situation should come up. But then it's way, way beyond our control. So let me use this medium to extend our sincere apologies to all the beneficiaries involved in this issue. We know how it feels like, even when you are working and you are paid. You know, the money is not enough. How much more when you haven't been paid? It's a very unpleasant situation. So I'm using this medium once again to appeal to them to be patient, to be calm, go back to their work or to their various homes and take our word that we've started the payment and others will follow very soon. Coming to our offices, going to the media houses will not solve the problem. The issue is that as and when we get monies, their allowances will be paid to them and there will be peace for all of us.
In other news, the Ghana Integrity Initiative is demanding updates and publication of reports from the Office of the Attorney General on corruption cases in the country. The GII, addressing the press today, cited several corruption cases that have been left hanging and unresolved. Programs Manager of GII, Mary Awelana, promised her outfit will continue to pile pressure on the mandated authorities to resolve corruption cases. Joy News' Selena Mampo was there and has more details.
The Ghana Integrity Initiative is asking President Akufo-Addo's government to publish investigative reports on corruption cases still hanging and yet to be prosecuted.
We have invited you here today to demand of government, particularly agencies of state mandated to investigate and prosecute corruption, the status of several alleged cases of corruption, which inundated the airwaves during the course of the year. But unfortunately, we still do not know the outcomes or their outcomes.
The statement read by the program's manager, Mary Awelana Ada, cited several corruption cases that have been investigated by the media but left to die off.
The $74 million waste bin scandal. I hope you all remember that. And if you do not, let me give you a brief synopsis of the fact. In September 2017, an investigation carried out by Joy News revealed that a contract awarded to 5 companies belonging to the Jospon Group to supply 1,240,000 bins and 900,000 pieces of bin liners was inflated by at least 31.1 million. Metro Mass Transit, the scandal that erupted, and we discussed over the media space and in civil society spaces for such a long time. This case is the Ghana Bauxite Company scandal. In July 2018, media investigations again revealed that the Ghana Bauxite Company evaded the payment of penalty for overloading haulage trucks to the tune of more than $90 million over a period of 6 years.
The organization has charged the president to step in and call government appointees to order.
Took place. We at the Ghana Integrity Initiative are also scandalized by recent reports that some government appointees and ministers of state are withholding information from the police and Attorney General's department. This development, we are told, is making it difficult to proceed with some of the cases we have enumerated above. We therefore call on the president to step in and call government appointees to order. We also challenge the police and the Attorney General to use the constitutional and legal powers at their disposal to enforce compliance from the government appointees concerned.
The anti-corruption crusaders say they will continue to pile pressure on mandated authorities to stomp out the canker. Selinam Ampo for Joy News.
Now, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHRAJ, has directed 2 military men who tortured a 16-year-old Christopher Kombian to be compensated with 30,000 cedis. In a highly anticipated report, The Commissioner of Shraj, Joseph Whittal, also directed the Ghana Armed Forces to fully take care of the boy's medical bills and rehabilitate him until he is normal again. The 3 military men accused Christopher Combian of stealing a mobile phone. For 7 hours, they lashed, kicked, handcuffed, hanged him on a tree and dropped hot plastic on his genitals. Before we bring you the recommendations from Shraj, let's watch extracts of the Hotline documentary As If We Weren't Human, which revived the case which had gone cold. Jojo Kobina has more.
From Nalerigu, we connect to Bumprugu to meet a boy who has a peculiar story.
This is my last life home.
In 2016, a 16-year-old boy, Combian, was accused by a group of military men of stealing a mobile phone.
I was really beaten up. I was lashed with military branches. I cried, protesting that they should stop, but they did not. They stripped me naked. They kicked me. And they hung me on a tree, and my leg could not touch the ground. I begged for water, but they did not listen. They melted rubber and dropped it on my back and on my genitals.
2 years after he was brutalized, Combian tells a story.
So, started deflating the tie, and I said he shouldn't do that. It doesn't belong to me. He refused, and he started caning me. He caned me about 3 branches of a neem tree, and it all broke. So I was about to run, and he uncuffed me, caned me. I was with a singlet, with a pant. So I was caning now to a point I can't turn myself. I have to run to a nearest chief house there. But as I was running to the chief house, I was shot by Samson Otuahine, but the bullet didn't get me. So I was able to get to the chief house. When I got there, the chief was able to receive me. But when they came, they were asking the chief to release me to them. The chief refused, and they pointed gun on the chief, and the chief released me to them. And they were booting me. I was still with the uncle. They were booting me back to the old airport. When we got there, my dress was full of blood. They removed my top and down all, and removed the handcuff and handcuffed me on a mango tree. So I was hanging. My legs was not touching the ground, and they continued the beating. I was begging, crying. They should leave me. I was innocent. My mom and my sister, a lot of people were there begging. Even people were trying to take videos to a point they were shouting that if they see anybody taking a videos, they'll shoot that person.
So you were watching the excerpts of Hotline documentary, As If We Weren't Human. Now let's look at some of the recommendations being proposed by Shraj. As of April 25th, 2016, when the complaint was lodged with Shraj, Christopher Bama was 16 years and 8 months old and hence was a child. It was also found that the brutality suffered by Christopher took place on April 1, 2016 and not April 4, 2016. Shraj found that Christopher was subjected to brutalities and dehumanizing acts by the military personnel on suspicion of him having stolen a mobile phone. One of the military men who assaulted Christopher is at large. It was found further that the victim was totally subordinated to the will and power of the soldiers for 7 hours. Shraj also found that Corporal Samson Etuahene and Corporal Collins Aisen admitted their culpability for the brutalities, apologized and wanted the intervention of the chief of Sheshegu community to help settle the matter. Shraj said the degree of torture of the deserves a redress. Based on its findings, SHARJ recommends that the respondents should render an unqualified apology to Christopher Bama, which is to be published within 3 months. The Commission is also recommending that the Attorney General and Minister of Justice take steps to criminalize torture in accordance with Ghana's obligation under Article 4(1) and 2 of the Convention Against Torture. The Commission has charged the Ministry of Defense and the Ghana Armed Forces to take steps to ensure that Christopher undergoes a thorough and comprehensive medical examination and care in any of the military hospitals run by the Ghana Armed Forces, and also rehabilitate to enable him lead a meaningful life. SHARJ has also commended FX Law and Associates, and in particular lawyer Francis Xavier Sosu, for his fight for the marginalized and whose effort led to the submission of the complaint on behalf of the victim. SHARJ also commended Joy FM, TV Africa and the medical facilities that assisted the victim when he was first violated. The show of leadership by the Ghana Armed Forces, particularly by the former CDS Air Marshal Samson Oje and his team of experts who also intervened when the news first broke. The decision was reached and communicated on December 17, 2018. Now, Commissioner Joseph Whittle has given the police 3 months to address the recommendations captured in the report.
What's important is that the torture has been established, and that it is the 2 military officers, Corporal Samson Atuahini and Collins Eisen, who actually tortured him, and it's all over a missing mobile phone. To that extent, looking at the gravity of the punishment that he received, and it was all about enabling him to confess. The torture was to force him to confess that he stole it. But throughout, Christopher, because he didn't steal it, actually maintained his stance to the end. We gave compensation for 15,000 cedis to be paid by each of them for pain, for trauma, for in fact, quite a number of things boxed together constitute the 15,000 cedis for each. That will be made payable through the Chief of Defense Staff, and the Commission should be informed within 3 months of the decision with evidence of the payment. We have directed the Attorney General to see to an early domestication of the Convention Against Torture. So Ghana is a signatory. Ghana ratified this convention in 2000, but up to today, Ghana has not taken steps to domesticate it. And in particular, Article 1 of the convention, which requires that the state should criminalize the offense of torture.
The SHARJ Commissioner has also recommended to the Military High Command to organize refresher courses for soldiers on what constitutes torture.
The institution, we have recommended that Article 10 of the Convention Against Torture should be operationalized. One, we think not many people appreciate the need for education with regard to minimum use of force. We have given men and women in uniform and weapons, how they interact with the public, what they should understand with regard to torture, how they should, conduct themselves in such a way that they don't end up endangering the lives of people, is something that is not well known. The typical soldier or policeman thinks that the army or the police have issued a gun for them To use it when they are threatened or when they have to control the crowd. But how you use it is important. And in this case, we think there should be a comprehensive training, education of not only the military, but people working in military installations, doctors, nurses, other paramedical officers, all those people who are involved in arresting, detaining, interrogating, members of the public.
Well, we've also been speaking to the victim's brother, Richard Combian, who spoke earlier on behalf of the family, said they are satisfied with the recommendations.
I'm very happy with the report. First of all, let me thank Joy FM and the other media house who has helped me in following the case. And I also thank my lawyer too.
So, please proceed.
I am very, very happy with the report. I haven't had a copy on my own, but I had a call from my lawyer this morning that the report is out. And he has briefed more for me. I will get a day and go to him for more.
But
so far, I'm happy with it.
How is Christopher doing, and have you informed him about this?
Not yet. I just had a call from the lawyer this morning, and I'm not feeling well.
Okay, but how is Christopher doing? Would like to know, because this is all about him.
He's doing better than the first.
You're still watching Joy News Prime with me, Arba Kumsin, and still ahead, minority in parliament demands President Akufo-Addo opens a full probe into what they say is the alleged inflation of the cost of a Ghanaian embassy building in Norway.
It's a categorical no. One, it was an offer, and as I speak to you, we've never accepted the offer from the purchaser, from the seller.
The minority says it has evidence to back their claims, but government is putting up a strong defense. We'll hear from government and the minority shortly after business. Welcome back. Now, the minority in parliament is asking President Akufo-Addo to open a full probe into what they say is the alleged inflation of the suspected Ghanaian embassy building in Norway. The property, according to the minority, was purchased at a cost of $12.1 million instead of $3.5 million. As you know, Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Minister Shirley Ayoko-Botchwey, in a statement, said the property is yet to be purchased and that discussions are still underway. But addressing a media briefing in Parliament House Tuesday, Minority spokesperson on Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, said the transaction is bad for the country. He insists government's claim the transaction has been terminated is untrue and the president must intervene.
Make the following demands. The minority demands evidence of the minister's purported 12 December letter. We want to see that letter. 2, we demand to see the response of the parties copied in that letter. Because as we have pointed out to you, the seller of the property has an agreement which we have tendered in evidence before you, and Ghana made some demands on the seller, and the seller proceeded to carry out those demands. Contractors are on site. I don't believe that that's the seller is Father Christmas. So we want to see the response. Maybe the seller is so forgiving, and so we'll just say, okay, we hear you, we walk out, go and sin no more. So we will not charge you for all the cost incurred. We want to see the response. Now, we also demand to know the full liabilities, because paragraph 419 of the budget says that this embassy has already been established. Our checks indicate that there is an officer of the foreign ministry who has been stationed there, who has been working, and who has been really spearheading these transactions. We do not want to mention her name for now. She's a lady. I'm not sure that she's also doing all of this at her own expense, no matter how patriotic and how she loves Ghana. I mean, she has to be catered for. We are also demanding a full probe into this entire saga. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we know is in Vienna, Austria, but he returns tonight. When he returns, we want to hear from him. Because this whole decision to open an embassy in Norway, the decision came from the president, and there was a cabinet approval. We do not know to what extent cabinet and the president is aware of all the documentation brought to us. Before you bring us documents, all of these inflated figures, it should have gone through some due diligence within the executive. Parliament is not a dumping ground where you come and dump all these documents for approval, and then you say that you have only gone to express interest, that you didn't really mean the approval that you were seeking from Parliament. We want to know, to what extent is the president aware of this transaction? And he must speak to this matter.
Well, Mr. Blackwell also showed videos at the media briefing, which he says is evidence the property is being renovated for the Ghanaian government. My colleague Joseph Opoku-Gapo was at that news conference. He joins me in the studio. Joseph, earlier today, the minister released a statement insisting the contract on the chancery has been cancelled and that government has not purchased any building as we speak. But the minority insists the contract has not been terminated. What evidence are they providing to back their claims?
So they pointed to the minister's own statement as evidence that, as far as they are concerned, there's been some money that the state has lost. Right. And they referenced paragraph 2 of the minister's statement. You recall that the minister made the point that there's been the contracting of a property valuer and a reputable lawyer with expertise when it comes to the acquisition of properties in order for him to look at this particular property in question. So they point to that and say, definitely, the said lawyer is not Father Christmas, as they put it. So he took money even to do the valuation. The estate developer they engaged also to a certain extent went ahead and took some money. An indication they claim is again something that provides the evidence that some money has been lost. Then the other evidence they put out was some of the documents that they tabled before the speaker yesterday. They produced what they say is a contract document that government was negotiating with the company in question, spelling out the renovation that needed to be made on that particular facility because it's being converted from a 6-bedroom structure into an office facility. So they claim that that document spells out from the side of government that they will convert some of the rooms into offices, they would introduce air conditioning, they would introduce bathrooms in some of the rooms, and they are insisting that if government hadn't contracted them to go ahead with that, they wouldn't have recommended that those changes be made. It certainly makes sense
that if you haven't purchased a building, you obviously would not go ahead to renovate it.
Which is exactly what they are pointing to, and then they make the point again that they've been, the minister was on the floor of Parliament the whole of yesterday afternoon. They draw attention to the fact that when the minister spoke, even before Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa raised the allegation of inflation, he addressed the issue of the embassies that are being opened in Oslo and in China and other areas and all. And all through, they claim that the minister kept making reference to the fact that they are going ahead to open the chancery in Oslo, and that it was only after they raised the red flag that the minister went on to make the point that on the 12th of December she had ordered for the cancellation of the contract. And so they say this was an afterthought. That's again the evidence that they are providing. And once again, the same contract document that is being referenced, there was a 1-week space that there was the demand that government needs to respond and sign the necessary contract, otherwise then the contract expires. And they say they've seen renovation work ongoing in that particular building. even after the 7 days. And so if government had not made any financial commitment, they wouldn't have seen the renovation going ahead, which are some of the
and on your screens
provided.
now, you see a video that the minority screened earlier today at that news conference showing the chancery, supposed chancery in Oslo. But of course, you have to put it on record that we cannot independently verify that this is the chancery or the mission that they are referring to. Government still insists that it has not purchased any chancery. Thank you very much, Gapo, Joseph Opoku Gapo. Well, government is not backing down on its stance. The Foreign Affairs Ministry insists no contract has been signed and Ghana does not have a chancery in Oslo. Listen to Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister Charles Oredu, who spoke on Top Story with my colleague Evans Mensah a while ago.
It's a categorical no. One, it was an offer. And as I speak to you, we've never accepted the offer from the purchaser, from the seller. We don't, if you can even show you a copy of that document he's reading, there is no Ghana, G-H-A-N-A written on that document. So how come he claims that this document is from, or is by this seller purporting to be an agreement between himself and that of our country, Ghana? There's no name in the Ghana on that document. We dispatched a team, a 5-member team, to Oslo to first look at the possibility of having a structure. It can be rent or whatever, so that when we move in, at least we have a place of abode. Now, this team came back to us and made a report. Out of the report, they had some options, about 3 or 4 options, and they presented a recommendation. Their recommendation was that out of the 3 or 4, we should, select this one. Of course, we looked at the technical reports that were submitted together with these options, and we decided that, okay, we're going to go for this. Now, the minister gave them, the go-ahead, to start talking to these people. Then Mr. went to Japan with His Excellency the President. Then on the 12th of December, she got wind of an article in a newspaper somewhere in Oslo saying that this figure, the seller who is selling this property to us, has padded the figures and all that. Then quickly, she called in to Accra and demanded that we discontinue, this whole discussion, even on this property. So as we speak now, Minister has not signed any agreement. We have not expended a peso. So the ordinary person, the Ghanaian taxpayer, he said nobody has expended a peso on this property.
Meanwhile, Chairman of Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, Frank Annodompreh, says he is convinced yet, he isn't rather convinced yet, that Ghana is getting value for money for the planned purchase of the embassy building in Norway. Mr. Annodompreh says the House needs to see more documentation on the transaction. He spoke last night on PM Express.
There has been an exponential increase in price, okay? Now, it is true that the matter has been discussed extensively in the Norwegian media, and then they had come to a conclusion that it was unethical. And I have that documentation and the sites where this discussion, and I've discussed with the ranking as well at that level. So that conclusion had been reached already. I mean, on our parts as the leaders of the committee, we have
reached a conclusion that the deal was unethical.
No, I mean from these sites,
okay,
from the Norwegian
that the claim the Norwegian media had concluded that it's unethical.
So it was all part of the motivations why we've written to the ministry to have a further discussion on the matter. So all put in context. But you see, interestingly, one of the things we were very much interested in was evaluation report. Today I got hold of that report, and the quotations in this report is not different from the quotations that were given to us by the ministry. So on the face value of it, I can conclude that nobody has done anything wrong. But we are saying that we as a country, we are looking at our interests. We are looking for value for money. Are we getting value for money? Are we? No, I mean, to this end, I don't think that we are. And I think that is why I wrote, otherwise I wouldn't have written that letter.
Away from Parliament, the most prevalent sound in Yendi at the moment and for the past few weeks are gunshots. Gunshots not for war, but in celebration of peaceful observance of the funeral rites for Yana Muhammadu Abdullahi, who died in 1988. Gifty Ando-Apia is head of our security desk here at Joy News. She's been interacting with some of the chiefs and their subjects who are trooping to the palace with their warriors as proof of their preparedness for the final funeral rites. Gifty has also been interacting with both the Kampakuyana, whose side of the family is waiting to perform their funeral rites, as well as the Bolin Lana. Both say all Dagbon needs is peace. She joins us live from Yendi with more.
Right, Araba, we're here at the Bewa Palace, and right here on my left is the newly constructed palace, and of course on my right you get to see the old palace. But what's been happening here since morning, really, Araba, has been the chiefs and the subjects trooping in right here to meet up with the Bolinlana right here. It's been very busy. I understand that there's about 400 chiefs, and over 400 chiefs are actually in this area, and all of them are expected to be here on the final day, which is next week Friday, which will be the final day for the final funeral rite of the Yana here. So, like you read, Araba, earlier, there's been a lot of musketry going on here because each of the chiefs come with their own warriors and they go through this ritual. Now, earlier on, I spoke to the Kampakuyana. Obviously, he didn't want to speak to us. Speak after they have performed their side of the funeral rites, which will be in January, but he raised a few concerns about what he's describing as inaccuracies in media reportage. He told us that he will be referring that matter to the Otufo-led committee, what he's calling the inaccuracies in media reportage. He also raised concerns about the presence of security here, which is heavy. He says that would hamper Christmas festivities. But of course, government has indicated that the presence of security here is necessary to maintain the peace that the people of Dagbon have been craving for over the years. After I spoke to him, Araba, I've been speaking as well to the Bolinlana, and what he's also said is that he's very happy about how the funeral rites have gone on so far. He's asking, by the way, for support, especially for the final day of the final funeral rites, which is next Friday. He's asking for support for, doctors, a health post around here, because there is going to be a lot of crowd here. He's also asking for support in terms of security. But one thing that runs through what both of them have told me, Araba, is that Dagbon needs peace. Their young people here need peace, and that is very important for both of the sides that I've spoken to. So we're here. Tomorrow, we're expecting that a lot more of the chiefs will be coming here to pay homage and to bring their warriors. Once again, a lot of musketry will go on. And then there's going to be some lectures tomorrow as well, which will be here to bring our viewers up to speed on. Araba.
All right, many thanks, Gifty Ando-Apia, and do take care of yourself there. She is head of our security desk here at Joy News. Away from that, caregivers at the Bekwai Central Destitute Home in Ashanti region are compelled to buy water from their own resources for use by the aged at the facility. The facility has been cut off water supply by the Ghana Water Company for unpaid bills, while a borehole at the center has broken down for over 2 years now. Although the Department of Social Welfare cannot readily give figures on daily or monthly expenditure on water, officials say volunteers get no refund for their purchases. Ohiminteria has more in the following report.
The infirmary, established 61 years ago, provides care to the aged and other vulnerable persons in society. Over 30 inmates who live here and their caregivers struggle for water, electricity, and even toilet facilities. They depend solely on government's Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program and individuals as well as corporate support for survival. With a capacity for 100 people, about half of its structures are either indeplorable or uninhabitable. Recreational center, health posts, residential and dining facilities have their roofs ripped off. Sick inmates are carried in taxi cabs to health facilities at the expense of workers. Patrick Nawa is the Municipal Director of Social Welfare and Community Development.
We lack a lot. The few facilities that are there are depleted. You can see that this building, the roof is almost off. And this one, which is the hall where we gather them to take their meals, is also off. And you can see the structures. They are all dilapidated at the verge of, I don't even know whether we can call them structures, because it's just something you cannot call structures.
Promises by government agencies to put the facility in good shape remain unfulfilled for years. It is almost a punishment to work under such trying and deplorable conditions, but caregivers remain unperturbed.
Frustrating, but we wouldn't say we lose hope, because it's nice working with vulnerable people. Sometimes the little you are able to do when they are happy, you feel happy yourself. You are equally happy. So although it's frustrating sometimes, at least the little you are able to achieve, it makes you happy.
Meanwhile, local NGO, Guardians of Grey Masters Foundation, has offered to renovate part of the home. The group of professionals and the Asantman Association in the US want to renovate clinic and recreational facility for the inmates. The proposed project was announced when leaders visited the center to donate food and wheelchairs, among other items, to the aged. Executive Director for Guardians of Grey Masters, Abigail Mieza, and Akwamuhine of Asantman Association, Nana Kwaku Owusu Intim, share some details.
If you look at the environment, it's still boring. As an aged home or a home for senior citizens, there are certain structures that we need to put in place. Like there should be a mini health center where they can be able to, take care of their health issues. There should be an ambulance.
But in fact, I'm very sad and very emotional that we should neglect our elders in this kind of situation. Look at the clinic. Look at the clinic. We can't even call it a clinic. So I'm appealing to Asantman. What I've observed today, we should try and do our best to come to their assistance.
Now, the Food and Drugs Authority says what appears to be a plastic fish on the Ghanaian market is safe for consumption. Contrary to popular belief, it is toxic. The fish emerged on the market in June with unusual coatings. If smoked, the fish develops tough, elastic skin, which rustles and even bends like plastic when exposed to excessive heat. Kamladum has more.
It's a sunny day in the Nsawam Township. We have come to meet a family alarmed by what they discovered as an unusual type of fish now on the market. We decided to get into the market and see for ourselves what this looks like. Women are lined up with smoked herrings. The skin of a fish from the market tray looks oily and with bent gold patches. But after it is scrubbed, the coloring disappears and a plastic-like shine remains. After about 5 minutes, the skin of a fish dries up and begins to rustle. They decide to light a match to the peeled skin of a fish, and within minutes, it burned like rubber. Having seen this, we went back to the Nsawam market to show samples of a fish skin to the vendors from whom the pieces were purchased. 40-year-old Auntie Mansa, who has been selling fish for over a decade, is surprised at what she sees.
I know nothing about the said plastic fish because the herrings are smoked. Even if you do not handle them well, they will break into pieces.
Okay. Another vendor, Ima, says no vendor uses any artificial coatings for their herrings.
Robin, well, okay. Robin, okay. Look at Sunny, well, okay. Robin,
Next stop is the Malamata market. This trader tells me she once discovered the unusual covering of a fish after a neighbor alerted her.
I realized the unusual skin of the fish and I put it on fire. It melted in no time.
49-year-old Mami is here to buy some of the herrings.
Fish from our waters cannot have rubber skins.
At the La Paz market, the concerns were similar. Back at home, this is what the fish looked like. Snake-like color, slippery skin, and had a thin covering which we managed to peel off. From what we had gathered from at least 3 major markets here in Accra, we headed to the fisheries department of the University of Ghana with samples of a fish for analysis. The Food and Drugs Authority is revealing its own analysis of the samples of a fish they got from the market does not show any plastic or rubber elements. Here is head of the Food Science Department of the Food and Drugs Authority, Madam Maria Abba Lovelace Johnson.
It's not plastic fish. But then FDA is telling everybody, if you really have any doubts, bring the fish. Let's see if it's plastic. But so far, all the ones we have had in our offices are not plastic. What happens is that when the fish is frozen, you see, living things have cells. So when the fish is frozen, the cell expands. It kind of expands to accommodate the ice. It loses its tensile strength, and so they become that rubbery, that foamy thing that is circulating. Be rest assured that it is not rubber fish or plastic fish or foam fish.
Now, an Accra High Court has granted an interlocutory injunction barring the NDC from proceeding with its presidential primaries. According to the court, the injunction is valid for 10 days, after which the plaintiffs can apply for renewal. My colleague Kwesi Parker Wilson joins me in the studio with details of the injunction. Hello, Kwesi. Who are the plaintiffs and what do they seek?
Right, we do understand that they are members of the NDC, one James Kafui Nate and Abdallah Isa. Now, let me just read verbatim what the injunction says, that upon reading the affidavit of Abdallah Isa of House number goes on and on, it says, upon hearing the submission of Christopher King, counsel for and behalf of the plaintiff application hearing, it is hereby ordered that the defendant respondent, the committee's agents, private servants, or authorized bodies and all persons acting through them be restrained from proceeding with the NDC 2019 presidential elections in the manner outlined in the guidelines as amended or at all until the final determination of the suit. It is hereby further ordered that the interlocutory injunction to be and is hereby granted for 10 days only, and applicants may repeat the application or notice after the expiry of this order. So
interesting, but has this come to the party's attention? Have they been reacting to it?
Okay, so what happened was that this evening when we got the information that these individuals have secured injunction, we sought an explanation from the party executive. I would understand that they have not been served yet, and in fact they denied even hearing about the injunction. So for them, they are going to continue with the processes until they are served, but until then,
I understand
of course,
we have a member of the party's national executive, Peter Otukono,
yeah, he responded
to this, so let's listen to him.
I have been with you here since morning, and we'll be moving in and out, interacting with the aspirants who are coming through. On the sidelines, we have been having a NEC meeting in the conference room. I have not taken any official notice of any such injunction. I don't have that information, so I am unable, I am constrained to speak into that. I can possibly only speak to what process that we have gone through and the information of which I am aware about.
So the party hasn't been served as far as the
I can't say that on authority that anybody in the party has been served or the party has been served.
Meanwhile, 7 presidential aspirants seeking to lead the NDC in 2020 filed their nomination forms to contest the presidential primaries. 8 aspirants were billed to return the nomination forms, but one of the aspirants, Stephen Atubiga, has withdrawn from the race, pledging support for former President John Dramani Mahama. Speaking to Joy News, he denied his inability to raise the 300,000 filing fees compelled him to opt out of the race. Kwesi Parker Wilson has more in the following report.
Unlike yesterday, today the party headquarters was quite calm. Yesterday we saw a number of party faithfuls clad in party colors and also in branded T-shirts of their respective candidate. But today was quite different. It was more like a serene and a calm environment here at the party headquarters, because 3 presidential aspirants seeking to lead the NDC joined the 4 aspirants who had successfully filed yesterday. Today we witnessed the filing of nomination from a businessman, Alhaji Nuruddin Idrisu, and Gozitano, and finally Dr. Eko Spiogabra. Of course, he was the minister responsible for trade and industry. The 7 aspirants are contesting in the presidential primaries of the NDC. Now, Alhaji Nuruddin Idrisu, when speaking to the media shortly after filing his nomination, he indicated that his mission into this contest is to empower the grassroots of the party, because he believes that they are the ones keeping the party on its toes.
I've realized that one thing is missing from day one till date, which is empowerment. Growing out as a baby, as a child, seeing PNDC secretaries and listening to everybody, empowerment has been lacking. And I told him that this is what is lacking. And as a matured adult today, I want to take over and ensure that this party is empowered. How am I going to empower the party? Answer it now before journalists take me on. It's simple. 1, I will ensure that every appointee, be it 5,000 people, each person is mandated to sacrifice 1 month of your salary to the party.
Next was Gozitano, who, of course, came with a number of party faithfuls, and he has always been preaching about the restoration of the values of the NDC, probity and accountability. And, of course, today he didn't mince words. He had another opportunity to reiterate his call to ensure that as he is going to lead the NDC, he will definitely restore the values of the party.
Our party is a grassroots party. It was created by the grassroots. It is, as accounts will say, it is a mob-roarers party. And to extend that it's a mob-roarers party, the expectations of us are much higher than the property-owning Democrats of the NPP. If I may say so in Twi, in NDC, it was Ijapaza and in Ijapaza, Ekahu. In NPP, Senye Ijapaza, Ekahu, Inyano. So we have a voice. Our party is for the voiceless, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. Let us go back and reclaim that spirit, that motivational force that drove NDC to be a transformative political force in this country.
And Dr. Eko Spiogabra was the last to file his nomination form. He, interestingly, had to pay more than what was expected of him. In fact, the presidential aspirants are supposed to pay 300,000 Ghana cedis for the filing fees, but Dr. Eko Spiogabra today paid 305,000 Ghana cedis. Now, he has been justifying why he deliberately exceeded the requirement for the filing fees.
I consciously overpaid what the party requested us to pay. The party requested us to pay 300,000 cedis, even though I was one of those who asked for that figure to be reduced from 400,000. And I'm still one of those who is still insisting that that figure should be reduced to a figure, say, about 150,000. So I'm part of the petitioners. Our petition is well known. But I've paid the extra 5,000 not to demonstrate that it is not an unwillingness to contribute to the party. It is not an incapacity or incapability of contributing to the party, but it's a matter of principle that this party should not forget its roots and should not begin to mimic other parties and should not attempt to commercialize itself and to monetize itself to the point where we price out of the market many wonderful members of our party who may not necessarily have all the resources that we think we need to run an election.
We were expecting one of the aspirants, Stephen Atuguba, to also file his nomination, but within the course of the day, the leadership of the party received a letter from him, actually a statement indicating that he's no more interested in competing in the race and has pledged to throw his weight and his support, his resources behind the former President John Dramani Mahama.
As I'm talking to you, some of them are even in my residence right now with certain opinion leaders, and I can tell you most of the northern stakeholders, some imams, have even spoken to me. They think that I should support my big brother John Dramani Mahama. I should give him the opportunity to go for his last term, and then 2024, they think they will also give me the support. And my wife thinks that if there's pressure from the stakeholders and opinion leaders for me to support John Dramani Mahama, giving him another term, why not? I've gone to prison for him to be president, right? What do I lose being a free man? Giving him the opportunity to get his second note, then I'll take over from him.
No, your critics say he just didn't have the financial muscle to prosecute this agenda.
I have gone around this country. It costs us more to do the endorsement on the form than even picking it up.
That is 20,000 Ghana.
And also going
you were supposed to pay 300,000.
Going around 275 constituencies, every aspirant will tell you we spend between 2,000 to 5,000. Work the math. We've gone through that all till now. The NDC is bigger than Atubiga.
So on Friday, the party will be vetting the 7 aspirants who are seeking the nod to lead the party going forward into 2020 election. My name is Kwesi Parker Wilson, and I have been reporting from the NDC headquarters here at Adabaka.